Whether it's on the road or on the rails, transportation is always an important issue, and tonight it was the topic of a debate featuring 3 candidates from the federal parties.
I'm really hoping to hear what the different parties have to say about transit expansion in the GTA. That's one of the big issues for me.
A crowded room at U of T's Innis Town Hall, where candidates from 3 parties laid out their plans for supporting transportation infrastructure across the country.
We have transit deserts in this part of the country, in this city, and we have to address that with investments, and those investments are now coming finally.
The NDP platform includes things like fare-free public transit, which is significantly important to low-income, marginalized communities.
Electric buses and forgetting something else are basically going to drive people to rail, but also those buses are going to provide rural public transit, hourly service between towns that allow people to get from place to place for doctor's appointments, etc., without having to have a car.
Notably absent from the conversation, the Conservatives, who declined to participate in tonight's event, and the Etobicoke candidate for the People's Party of Canada, Renata Ford, the widow of the late Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. She made headlines this year after her surprise run for the controversial new party formed by Maxime Bernier. But despite being on the bill, she was a no-show. Why the decision to include that party and to include her in this?
Well, I think the People's Party, they are running across the country. We've had many other debates where we always invited the Greens when they didn't have anybody actually elected. I think a lot of people use that sort of as a prerequisite. Does the party actually have somebody elected? And we thought, we want everybody part of this conversation.
That conversation spanned a range of topics related to transportation, including rail and air transport, funding and financing models, and of course there were burning questions from those in attendance.
The biggest issue for me tonight is transportation and jobs for young people. Because transportation is so important to climate change, I'd like to hear what the parties have to say, what they're going to do about transportation, reduce the amount of emissions.
Biking and bike lanes I think are very important.
On that issue, the NDP say they would like to see a national biking strategy, and the Liberals also promising to invest in biking infrastructure. The Greens agreeing, but adding that pedestrian infrastructure should also be top priority. Meanwhile, the parties had some differing views on the polarizing issue of road tolls. The NDP saying they would leave those decisions to municipalities, but recognizing that tolls wouldn't be necessary if federal funding was in place. The Liberal candidate agreed that tolls should be a municipal decision. He previously supported road tolls as a city councillor. The Greens also on board with road tolls, but took it one step further.
Tolls are a relatively small financial tool, and we argued at the last provincial election that in fact parking surcharges, there was Metrolinx that first introduced the notion that a 25-cent parking surcharge on every commercial parking spot across the GTA would raise several $100 million, and we ramped it up to a $2 a day parking surcharge that would produce $2 billion for transit.
And starting this Friday, City News will be bringing you special coverage of election issues every week. Be sure to catch a special edition of City News this Friday when we begin by exploring issues of transit and transportation.